What's up, guys? Welcome back to Making the Season. Today I'm going to be going over the scope I use for my hunting scope, which is a Vortex Viper 4 by 16 by 50. It is a turret scope, adjustable scope with the turret cap there. I've owned this scope for about 3 to 4 years, maybe 4 to 5 years, depending. I don't remember when I bought it, but it's the first scope that I ever really invested money into. Back then it was about $1,200. Right now it's about $800 roughly that I was looking at. I gotta say, for every scope that I've ever owned, I love this scope that Vortex put out. The reticle is awesome. It's an MOA reticle. It has an adjusted knob. I keep a cheat sheet for the adjustments for my scope on the back of my butt of my stock, which is awesome. I went out a couple weeks ago actually, and it's the first time I ever used the turrets for dialing. Usually I just use inside the reticle the MOA hash marks for shooting. I used the butt stock, turned it to the MOA for 700 yards, held dead on. Ping, I had it fully zoomed in at 16. That's kind of where I like to keep it. When you make an adjustment on zooming and zooming out, one thing I don't like about it is your reticle goes from small to big to small to medium, and your MOAs change on the distance and stuff, so you kind of have to have, there's a lot of thinking going into the process of your MOAs, and that's one thing I didn't really like about the scope, so that would be a con to me. But realistically, I just keep it zoomed in all the way to 16 power, and that's what works for me because the hash marks are 2 MOA each hash mark, so that I can quickly make, when I point down range, I can quickly come up with where I need to aim. Actually, this buck right here on the wall is from last year's buck there. From this camera angle, it really doesn't look that big, but he's pretty tall and everything. Really nice buck. Shot it with this rifle, with this scope at 493 yards. And I held with the hash marks in the scope after ranging it, obviously. I aimed for about 500 yards, and I put a bullet right behind this guy's front shoulder. No problem. I didn't have the bipod on there. I actually had the bipod set up for hunting coyotes this time of year because it's, snowing in Montana. Anyways, the scope reticle does light up if I had a fresh battery in there, which is okay. It's pretty cool. In Montana, you're not allowed to use a lit up reticle on a rifle scope for hunting purposes, so I don't ever use that. I do have a bubble level that is on the scope, and that's by Vortex Optics. I kind of think that the bubble level is a little too big, but I do enjoy having it there because when I shot this buck up here, I actually leveled that bubble level out, and I squeezed the trigger. What I tell myself when I was squeezing is squeeze, 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 and just lightly pull the trigger. Boom, hit him right behind the front shoulder. I got a follow-up shot on him pretty quick. That was probably roughly 200-300 yards. Got a second shot on him, and then he was going to go down for the count as it was. But where I was aiming with the scope, I mean, the scope is very easy to tune into any rifle setup that you have. I've had this rifle scope actually on a 338 Win Mag. It's sighted in just perfect. This rifle right here is actually a 6.5 Creedmoor, American Ruger, which a lot of you guys see the stock, you already know. I'm going to get into a full gun review on one of my other videos that I'm going to be uploading to the YouTube channel about the rifle itself and what round I'm using. But for this purpose of this video is just for the rifle scope alone, which I'm right here. I'm about to enter. I'll put a video of hitting a steel target at 700 yards right here, and I'm just going to go ahead and play that now. But you see there, that's without even putting too much too much focus into everything else that's going around. I was using that steel target as a hunting scenario, saying that that was kind of a buck at 700 yards, I would say. And I wanted to see if I could hit the steel plate from where I was by making the adjustments of the scope on my turret card, which I turned it all the way 16, I think it was. Let's see here. 700 yards is 16.3 MOA for my rifle setup. I switched it to 16.3 MOA and made the adjustment with the top turret, and I let everything settle down. I squeezed the trigger and ping, I hit the plate, which you guys just seen. I did move on to, I moved backwards to 800, 900, and 1,000 and made the adjustment with the turret as well, and it hit dead on at 1,000 yards. First time actually shooting 1,000 yards for 2020 using the Vortex Viper scope here. One thing I do like about this scope is if you bring it all, you turn it all the way down, back to zero, basically to get back to zero, is you turn it all the way down to your furthest one, and then you just rotate it back to the 0 hash mark, actually on the scope itself right here. And it is true. I trust that I can turn this bluntly without even looking at what I did. I don't know what I just did. I just turned it all the way up actually, but I could turn it all the way back down. The top turret scope stops, and then I just move it back to 0 on the scope, which actually the scope has this red line on the top, which is awesome for actually knowing exactly where you're set up when you're behind the scope aiming wise. For you guys that I totally forgot. I forgot to push record when I did this part, so I'll just go ahead and add it in there. The magazine is out of the rifle. The gun is pointing in a safe direction, and there is no bullet in the chamber. I forgot to mention that. One thing I like to do with my rifles, I got this learned from an old guy, is I keep the trigger pulled and then close the bolt. Just another safety precaution that I take. Anyways, all in all, for this scope, if I was going to say for a long range shooter, I do wish I did. They do have another Vortex Viper out there. I believe that is a 4x25 or something like that. I would love to have that scope actually. When I bought the scope, I thought I was going to buy the others on there. But anyways, thank you for tuning into this video. If you guys have any questions or anything that you guys would like to ask me about this scope, please hit it in the comments below and I'll answer to the best of my knowledge. All in all, if I was going to rate this scope from a 1 to 10, as 10 being the highest, I'd probably rate it around probably a 9, I would say. I wouldn't give it a full 10 because I don't like the reticle shrinking all the way small and then going all the way big and everything. I'm more comfortable with the reticle staying the same, which I should have looked into when I bought the scope. But other than that, I'm very happy with this optics on here. I have shot plenty of deer with using this scope in other animals. And I mean, my wife's used this scope. She's went out, she's this would be her second year hunting bucks. She harvested a buck last year, which she dropped. And anyway, she shoots roughly around 200 yards and slept her buck right in his bed, which was awesome. I got to watch that from the side of the road through a spotting, or from some binoculars and a phone scope. But she uses it. She's okay with the scope, but she's not too fond of it. She doesn't like it too much. But for my purposes and what I use for long range shooting and everything, I would recommend you guys picking one of these up. Anyways, if you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe button. But until next time, I'll see you guys later.